Welcome back to the exchange. Secretary of State Antony Blinken meeting with President Xi Jinping today of China, final day of the visit there. Secretary Blinken stressed the need to avoid miscalculations and misunderstandings, while President Xi brought up the importance of China's economic growth and stressing that the way China grows matters. This as the U.S. and China are walking a fine line between cooperation and competition as disputes grow over trade, national security, geopolitics. So let's bring in our panel of experts to discuss where things stand and where they might go from here. Joining us now, Dewardric McNeal, Managing Director and Senior Policy Analyst, Longview Global, and Nicholas Lardy is a Senior Fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics. Nicholas, or Nick, may I call you? Welcome to both of you, by the way. But Nick, let me start with you. It seems as though the U.S. is trying very hard to thread a needle between actions that are meant to be corrective or encouraging or punitive and language that is meant to be conciliatory. Can they do that?
Well, I think so far the administration has been able to do that. They're very tough on the economic front, tighter and tighter sanctions, more and more tariffs. But they're getting the meetings between President Xi and President Blinken. The Secretary of the Treasury and others from the administration have met their counterparts in Beijing. So the geopolitical atmosphere has improved a bit. But at the same time, the administration is announcing tighter and tighter restrictions on the economic and technical exchange with China.
What does it tell you that China has been receptive, as you say, to meetings with Secretary Yellen, Secretary Raimondo, now Secretary Blinken? What does it tell you that they're trying to do here?
Well, I think they want to have a stable relationship with the U.S., and they're hoping they can get some modification in the U.S. Economic policy towards China. I don't think they're going to have much luck, at least in the short term. I think the administration is pretty hard over on restricting China's economic growth and access to technology.
Dewardric, one of the issues that was discussed here apparently during the conversations is Chinese aid to Russia that would be potentially lethal aid that could go to Russia in its war against Ukraine. Do you sense any progress on this front?
We'll have to see, Tyler. As you say in the opening here, this is the major part of Blinken's visit here, is to deliver a tough message on Russia. You'll recall that at the beginning of this conflict, the U.S. was very clear that lethal aid to Russia could trigger secondary sanctions. And for the last 2 years, China has not delivered anything that's easily identifiable as lethal aid. But what we have seen is China sending to Russia things like microelectronics, machine tools that helps them to backfill their defense industrial base. But the U.S. is growing increasingly concerned that it is helping Russia on the battlefield in Ukraine. So Blinken was there to deliver a tough message that either get this together or there will be some additional sanctions that's going to be brought to the fore, particularly here, Tyler, potentially on Chinese banks, which could breed all sorts of chaos into the market.
So, Nick, let me pose sort of a college essay question to you. Compare and contrast this visit of Secretary Blinken with that of Secretary Yellen a few weeks ago.
Well, I think there are a lot of similarities. Secretary Yellen was asking for some adjustments in Chinese industrial policy, talking about overcapacity in certain industries that was leading to large exports, which potentially would be adverse for the United States. Blinken is also conveying a message that's asking China to change its policy, just like Secretary Yellen, in this case, restricting a broader range of exports to Russia. China has not violated any official sanctions, but the U.S. is raising the ante, saying that even normal trade has to be more restrictive because it might indirectly contribute to Russia's war-making capability. As we've already noted, China has not sold any military equipment, direct military equipment to Russia, but now we're asking them to tighten up even more.
Dewardric, how big a danger is the relationship. How much danger is embedded in the U.S. China relationship? Specifically, we worry with a lot of talk about pressure in the South China Sea, pressure against Taiwan. How dangerous is this relationship these days? Or is it a little less dangerous than it was 2 years ago, 4 years ago?
It's a good question, Tyler. Let me try and answer it this way. I think it is more managed than it was a year ago, but the dangers and the risks that things can go bad are still there. But listen, I think the administration has to be given a lot of credit here, because what you're seeing with the Yellen trip, what you're seeing with the Blinken trip, is this attempt to really put in place this managed approach. And so you have a situation where high-level dialogue is taking place on real issues of concern on both sides, and a real clear expression of the consequences that may come if these things are not addressed. And I think that is the essence of what a managed relationship will look like. It's not going to take out the risk necessarily, but at least we are talking, and the consequences on both sides are being made very, very clear here.
So, Nick, let me, I have a hard time phrasing this with nuance, so I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to blurt it out. Has the Biden administration's approach to China, i.e. keeping tariffs in place, fundamentally thereby embraced, endorsed, or shown that Trump got it right when he put those tariffs on?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. A lot of people early on thought Biden might back off a little bit on the tariffs and undo some of the things that Trump put into place. But he's done exactly the opposite. He hasn't taken away any of the tariffs that Trump put in, and he's added a lot more, and he's added a great deal more in terms of technology restrictions. So he has basically doubled down on the Trump restrictions. And of course, it's been very popular with both parties. So I don't think it's likely to change anytime soon.
Dewardric, do you agree with that Biden's actions have implicitly said Trump got it right?
Well, I think if you talk to the administration, what they would say is that what they have tried to do differently is really bring allies and partners into this, reduce some of the tariffs that were being placed on allies and partners. But on balance, I agree with Professor Lardy here. I think the approach here, using tariffs to try and change the behavior of China, has remained in place.
Nick